All right, let's get our basketball fix. We've been so portal obsessed that it's nice to get old school here and talk a little prep recruiting. And one of the best guys in state to talk to, Scott Burgess, prephoops.com. Scott, do you feel a little overlooked, the prep hoops side, with the transfer portal the last few months?
Yes, it definitely going into the spring is when I noticed it the most when I used to get calls heading into those first two AAU live weekends. Hey, who should we be watching? What are some of the young kids we should be watching? It's hey, do you have this kid from 5 years ago's number still? Hey, who's this kid's handler? Who do I need to go through? All this stuff. And I'm like, I haven't talked to that guy in 3 or 4 years. What's going on with this kid? Like, is he thinking about leaving? I'm like, I don't know. Like, ask me about current high school players. But yes, it is very, very strange now that I get asked more about kids I covered, in the 18 to 22 class than 24 and on at this point. It's weird.
Yeah, so I want to ask you, like, how does it impact the high school kids nowadays? Have you seen an impact of opportunity and for who?
Oh yeah, for sure. Honestly, it trickles down all the way to small colleges. Like when you think about it, it's like, obviously, Illinois fans look at it from their perspective, but a mid-major school, like all the way down to Division II, Division III, it affects those kids' opportunities because everybody's like, oh, we want to hold scholarship back, that maybe we would have used on a high school kid. And then when these kids, I tell everybody now, if you have a situation you want as a high school recruit, you take it and you take it as soon as you can because it could be gone just like that, especially once you get into after the fall signing period. Like a lot of those opportunities are gone at that point. So I think I'm a big advocate of if you have something you like that's committable, like you see a lot of these offers going out there and it's like, how committable are they? But yeah, I would say take what you have when you have it because that school that is recruiting you that offered you a scholarship might not have the greatest season and their coach might be on the hot seat and he might want to go out and get a 22-year-old instead of a 18-year-old freshman. That's not going to help as much right away. And then it, like you said, not only from all the players and level wise, but when you're talking about the classes like 25s, 26s, even early on with 27s, like back in the day, I remember talking about guys like, Jabari, we talked about Jabari and Jalil and Cliff and Alex Foster, Tommy Hamilton, Jeremy Richmond, all those guys when they were, some of them before they even entered high school. Jeremy was committed before he even entered high school. And now, like, the recruitment on those guys has really reeled back. And it's because they're so focused on, okay, first transfers, then second current or getting ready to be seniors and making sure we have that class locked in. They're not looking as far 2, 3, 4 classes in advance. Maybe the blue bloods do a little bit more, but most schools in general don't anymore.
Scott, let me ask you about this because you brought up some of those names and I don't know if they would have finished their high school careers in the state of Illinois anymore because we keep seeing all of some of the state's top prospects leaving the state, and that includes Jeremiah Fears with his brother Jeremy now going to Michigan State. He's leaving Joliet just as Jeremy did for a little while in his high school career. And Jeremiah, obviously, an Illinois target, going to visit Illinois, I believe, this week. But I've asked Joe Hendrickson about this. I want to get your opinion about this. Like, what is happening there? Why is this happening? And is there anything, in-state coaches can do about it?
I mean, if you look at the 4 that we've lost this year as a state, you're talking about James Brown, who we would have had at number 2, Cole Serta would have been number 3, Jeremiah Fears, who would have been number 1 in the 25 class, and Melvin Bell, who was number 2 in the 25 class. So that's 4 of probably your top 8 best prospects overall, regardless of class, that all left. They all went to NIBC schools. The NIBC model has kind of taken Nike EYBL's model and morphed it into high school basketball. And it's like, that's where everything is. Because you have, well, I guess Jeremiah's not going there anymore. He was originally going to Sunrise. Now he's going to AZ Compass, which is a part of another league. So these they're not shoe leagues, but they're branded leagues that are playing on ESPN and playing on streamed games, and they're traveling across the country. That's like the hot new thing to do. And I get both sides to it.
Yeah.
It gets you ready for college because you're playing a league competition, not only in games, but every single day in practice, you're playing elite competition. So I get that. It sets you up for kind of a college mindset with the travel and all that stuff as well. When you get to college, it's travel here, got to do your studies whenever you can, etc. And then I also get the other side. Selfishly, I want them to stay because I want to have good players to cover, but also too, I think it's a little sad when you see some of these guys who could be legends. I mean, you look at Jabari Parker and those guys, Kendrick Nunn, that group, that team will be forever remembered. Jalen Brunson, he is a legend in Stevenson. No matter whatever happened, if he didn't go on to Tyler Ulis had a really good career at Kentucky, not much of a pro career in the NBA. He is forever a legend in the South suburbs and in the Chicago basketball community and state of Illinois high school basketball community. I think that's something that people maybe miss out on by going to these out-of-state prep schools, that they just look at it from this is like the new flashy thing to do. And I think there are pros and cons to both sides to it.
Well, Scott, let's focus a little bit on some guys Illinois basketball might have some interest in. And let's start with the commit. I mean, this guy's been committed for a while now, but he seems like he's only getting better. And I love Marez. I love the way he plays, but you watch him a heck of a lot more than I do. So Marez going into his senior year, what do you make of him as a prospect?
I said it. I think I tweeted it. I wrote it in my report for this event. I don't see any reason why he's not a 5-star. From what he can do, from an ability to impact the game in so many ways. Physically, he has an unbelievable frame. He's strong. He's super athletic. He's an elite level rebounder. He's a very good shot blocker. And as far as, running the floor hard, just his motor is just off the charts. But what I think people are starting to maybe sleep on a little bit is the skill level is coming along, and it's coming along fast. He hit multiple threes, multiple mid-range jumpers in games this weekend. It's an area that he's slowly progressed throughout his career. He's an underrated passer, I think. He can take it and rip from the mid-range. He can rip on the baseline and take it for a dunk. I think that skill level progression and not just being this high motor energy rebounder, tough athletic guy is what can take him to the next level and not only be a really good player in the Big Ten, but potentially down the line be a pro.
Why don't you think he is that? We have him at top 50. I think Rivals has him at 31. I'm not sure where ESPN or anyone has him, but why don't you think he's quite reached that hype? Is it because he's committed? Is it because he doesn't have as much? I guess he's ahead of James Brown for a lot of people now, so people are watching him at least.
Yeah, I don't know, and I'll say this. I'm super close with a lot of the 24/7 guys that do the national ranking. That is such a hard job. I think it's hard doing the Illinois ranking to cover the whole country, because it's one of those things where you might only get to see a kid 1 or 2 times during the spring or the summer, and your entire evaluation is based on that. So I think it's hard with that. Just from my seeing, the week before, I saw the elite players in the 25 and 26 classes at Nike Elite 100, that are 5-star bona fide, potential future McDonald's All-Americans. A lot of those guys, he was right at that level to me. I think one thing is he's not overly talkative. I have a really good relationship with him. We talk. He's actually, honestly, one of the kids that actually calls me on the phone instead of text me, which is very rare. But he's not one of those guys that loves the media, loves the spotlight, all that stuff. He just wants to do his work and play basketball and do what he does best and get better. And so I don't know if that has anything to do with it, but just based on my opinion of what I saw of him this weekend, I've seen this spring, and just the overall progression since before his high school career started. Like, a lot of people don't remember, like, he would come in his freshman year was the COVID year. So a lot of the first evaluations I saw him were like online footage of him playing in some league in Indiana, and I'm like, this kid's got a chance. And just to see him develop throughout his career, I really like the trajectory he's gone on.
Well, Illinois is looking to add to the class of 2024 with Morez, and I'm going to screw up the pronunciation of his name, but Jason Jakstys out of Yorkville, 6'10", big man, looks pretty skilled. He's a 3-star recruit by most services. So what do you make of this offer, Scott, and what do you think of his potential?
I've been a huge fan of him for a while. He played with Basketball Paradise last year on our prep hoop circuit, and I was a huge fan. He's got legit size. He's added strength to his frame since then, but he's always just been super productive. But he's also had the potential to get better, and he is showing that he's getting better and better. We've had him ranked in the top 7 in this class ever since going into I think the summer going into his, like, a year ago almost. So he's been right on that cusp of potential high major. And then he's moved up to number 5 with some attrition of the guys we talked about earlier. He's very skilled at 6'10", 6'9". He can post up, excellent footwork, very good passer. He can stretch the floor with his shooting. And I think the best thing he does is block shots. He's an elite level rim protector. Saw him against Phoenix Gill's team on Sunday at RB. He had 7 blocks, maybe like 5 in the first couple minutes, and then they were like, "Yeah, this whole going in the lane thing's probably not going to work so well," especially when it wasn't Phoenix, and they just kind of started doing stuff on the perimeter. But he's just got such a great feel. He's a versatile defender that can switch in ball screens. He's athletic, mobile, and a great team player. And I think the thing that is the most intriguing for Illinois and their fans is he is a perfect complement to Marez. Marez and him fit each other's games well, with Marez bringing the rebounding, the toughness, the high energy, Jason bringing the more established pick and pop ability. They can both run the floor really well. I think they're going to complement each other well if they were to play together. And Illinois is, quietly been on the trail for him for a while. I actually, when he posted the offer, I was like, I thought they already offered him, but I guess they hadn't. So, but they have been recruiting him for a while, and they were definitely, they had coaches at every single one of his games this weekend, and he performed very well.
Yeah. Another guy who performed really well, in-state kid, Illinois offered last year at this time, familiar name Gill, but Phoenix Gill, son of Illini legend Kendall Gill, seemed to have a strong weekend at Riverside Brookfield. Illinois, out ahead, no other high major offers at this point. Toledo, some other schools are in on him. But what do you make of Phoenix Gill's progression over the last year and really last couple months?
Yeah, so one of the top players in that class, and I think with the way he played this past weekend, I saw either full or parts of 3 of their 4 games. The Ignatius team looks very different than it did last year, where he had 2 other Division I players he was going with Richard Barron and Jackson Kotecki. They have no Division I players on that team other than him now. And so it's kind of his team. The first game I saw him, he was getting to the basket and getting fouled a lot. So I think he scored the majority of his points at the free throw line. The second game, I caught the last 10 minutes. His team was behind by a pretty significant amount. He went on an absolute tear. I think Derek was sitting at the other end of the floor for that game, and he just went on a monster tear where he was scoring absolutely at will. Athletic takes to the rim, pull up jumpers, getting his teammates involved. He did really whatever he wanted. The only mistake he made, honestly, in that 10-minute stretch that I watched, was he pulled up for a 3, and it was kind of like that Kevin Durant shot a couple years ago. It's just a little bit on the line. And so they didn't send the game into overtime, but he was spectacular. He had 32 points in that game. And then the game against Jason and Yorkville Christian, he had 15 points. But I was most impressed with was his all-around floor game. He was getting his teammates involved. His shooter, Philip Erickson, was really hot that game. He was finding him. He can play on and off the ball, and he's a really high-level defender as well. I think that's something that Kendall was really known for throughout his career, both in college and in the NBA. And Phoenix is really starting to get those traits. And it was the first time I looked at him. Something a lot of people have talked about is he doesn't play basketball. So this was the first chance I had been able to see him since what he did in Champaign, where he was really good in the semifinal and consolation game. He's got more defined body. You can tell he's been in the gym working. He kind of starting to look like his dad physically too. And with those long arms, that strength, those broad shoulders. He was really impressive. I think there's potentially Davion Hannah moving to Illinois. It's not for sure yet, but he played with Kenwood this weekend, top player in Wisconsin. But if he doesn't, I think you're looking at a battle of him and Alex Alston for number 1 in 2025.
I want to ask you about Alston because Ty Rogers' senior year, I went and saw him and Thornton play against Kenwood. Day Ames, really loaded Kenwood team, right? They've been loaded in Chicago publicly the last couple of years. And the sophomore game, I saw this long, lanky freshman shooting threes and making them. And I'm like, oh, that kid could be interesting. And it turns out it's Alex Alston. And I said, oh, I'm going to watch that kid, see if he blows up. And he certainly has blown up into a high major prospect. Illinois has offered. What do you think of him, Scott?
Yeah, I mean, first of all, to do what he can at his size is so intriguing. Some of these other guys, particularly some of the guys that have moved out of state, got a lot more hype early on because the production was there. But I kept looking at it. I was like, that's the dude that has the long-term potential. When you're watching kids when they're super young, you're looking at what they're going to be in 3 or 4 years, not what they are right now. And he was the one that you pointed to, and it's like, he's 6'7" now, but he's going to continue to grow. I call him kind of a point power forward almost, where like he operates as a 4, but he can be a post player as far as operating your offense. I think one of the best things he does, you mentioned the shooting, I think his passing is unbelievable. At Nike Elite 100 camp, they played him a little bit out of position. He was kind of playing the 5, which doesn't really fit his style perfectly. But what I liked about him was he was grabbing the boards off the glass and pushing in the open floor and using his ability to see over other defenders, even elite players, and pick the defense apart, whether it was a rim runner, whether it was a shooter. He could also pull up and shoot the 3 ball. I think he's just got so much skill at that size, and the versatility on both ends of the floor is very, very intriguing.
Yeah. I know it's early for this class, but it seems like there's some excitement, Scott, about the freshman class that hasn't even had a class in high school quite yet, but the class of 2027. Are you as excited about this as I've heard some other people?
I am. I was very, very intrigued with what I saw this weekend, I think. The only one I guess I'd seen a couple of them in person. The one that we've seen quite a bit is Jackson Davis, from Warren. He's a left-handed point guard. The first game I saw him was this spring at one of our Prep Hoops events, played against Hansberry star Albrooks Jr., and he went for 44 points playing up on the 17U level. And I was like, well, we got something here. And it was just his poise and his ability to make shots, get others involved, get in the lane, slick handles. He was really good this weekend. I know a lot of different high majors were already tracking him. First game I saw this weekend was Bolingbrook versus Downers Grove North, and it was a kid named Davion Thompson, who is actually, I think, on the Illinois football radar already, as well as he's projected to be the number one high school quarterback in that class in Illinois, and one of the better ones in the country, supposedly. And he was spectacular in a game with coaches baseline for Jack Stanton, who is racking up mid-major offers left and right. He was the best player on the floor, and he scored 18 points, hit 4 threes, got to the rack when he needed. He showed a passing feel. He threw a couple like baseline throws across the court to his shooters in the opposite corner. And I'm just like, wow, that kid's really impressive. And basketball might not be his best sport. And I know Bolingbrook has another quarterback I hear is pretty good too. So we'll see how that all plays out. But he was really good. Howard Williams from Whitney Young, super athletic, kind of a 2-3 at this stage. Got some development to go as far as his long-term potential, but you got to love the athleticism, the upside there as a two-way player. And then there's one more I'm forgetting. Oh, Devin Cleveland from Kenwood, the younger brother of Fred Cleveland, who was a Division I player at NCAA, played at Leo for a long time. He's at Kenwood. On that stacked Kenwood team with, some of the best seniors in the state, Alex Alston, Davion Hanna in the junior class. This freshman coming in dropped 15 points in a pretty competitive game against Rolling Meadows. Good shooter, can really make shots from distance, good handles, and he played with poise too. Like, I was very impressed with all 4 of those freshmen. And then there's one more that I've not seen yet, but he's kind of making his first big debut this weekend at the Morez shootout today, is Cam Riggs from Normal West. He's a national name that I've not seen in person, but I've heard a lot of good things. And I'm excited to get some reviews from friends that are there today. So those are the 5 freshmen to watch at this point.
That'll be fun to watch them develop. Scott, this has been great. Before I let you go, just want to ask you again. I know Illinois fans have not had the NCAA tournament success they have wanted, but certainly Illinois has had a lot of Big Ten success and just feels so much more relevant again. Just what is the buzz about Illinois when you talk to people, whether it's recruits or coaches, about where the program's at and just the cachet they have on the recruiting trail right now?
Yeah, I definitely think the cool factor, or whatever you want to call it, is back, where it wasn't there in maybe the mid 2000, whatever, what do we call them, the teens, whatever. I don't think that was there where a lot of these kids were really considering Illinois. And I think it is back. It's one of those things when one of those Illinois coaches is at your game, it's a big deal. And you could tell that from the players this weekend, whether it was Tim Anderson or Jeff Alexander or Coach Underwood or any of those guys were at those games this weekend. There was a buzz among the players, and Illinois is over there watching. So I think definitely the program's going in the right direction, and getting. Guys like Io was huge. And then even getting a guy like Terrence Shannon. Yeah, he didn't commit to you out of high school, but to get him on the bounce back, that was big for these in-state players. And, they've done well doing that even in the transfer portal. With potentially Jeremiah Williams and some of these other guys, where Justin Harmon wasn't even I look back, we had him 66 in the class. Like he wasn't even on the radar. But it's those type of players where, with how recruiting is done now, it's like, if you can leave an impression on those guys when they're in high school, whether it's just consistently showing up at public league games or big time events. Like, I remember when they went to the TOC this year, I thought that made a huge statement when they went full staff, half the team or quite a bit of the team came. I think doing stuff like that makes a huge statement that this is our state. We want to recruit the best players. We want to get the best talent. And unfortunately, a lot of them are leaving, but as far as like leaving the state of Illinois for high school, but I think they've done a great job as far as prioritizing the guys that are high major recruits. There's not as many as there once was. We're not in the era of 2014 when Javon Carter was like the 15th ranked player in the state, and but to his credit, like all those guys above him were still high majors. We're not at that anymore. It's 4 or 5 guys max each year, but they're doing a really good job identifying those kids and making them feel like a priority early. And I think you saw it this weekend where Illinois was at games of Jackson Davis at Warren. They were at games for Whitney Young watching Howard play. They were at the Kenwood games, obviously for other players, but Devin Cleveland saw them there. They were at the Bolingbrook kids games to see him. To get out and see these kids before they even play a high school game, that's got to make an impression on those kids early in the process. Now, who knows what that'll mean later on and how recruiting works anymore. I don't even know how much of that matters, but they're doing a good job.
Scott Burgess, you can follow him on Twitter at ScottyBScout. You can follow him at his website, prephoops.com. Scott, always appreciate the time and insight, my friend.
Thanks, bud.